Okay, welcome back to my channel. I just finished the last class of my term, and that class was D196, Principles of Financial and Managerial Accounting. My bad for messing up that title. But I kind of wanted to go over this class in more depth because a lot of people asked questions on it. I had a lot of questions about it, and I've had some really good resources. And hopefully I just want to make this class a little bit more manageable or a little bit more digestible for anyone who is either struggling with this class or for anyone who is going to take this class and is really intimidated by all of the Reddit threads that are kind of making it seem super scary. Because definitely my mentality going into it was that I was afraid, and I almost just pushed this class off into the next term. So let's just get into it then. D196, Principles of Financial and Managerial Accounting. Just kind of like a similar format to my last videos. I'll kind of go on about my timeline. I will talk about my approach, but then I will also dive deep and go into important concepts that I think you need to understand. So this class took me about 2 weeks to finish from start to finish. I've had this class ready to take for about 4 weeks, so I've registered for it, but I just hadn't really gone into it until the past 2 weeks. And the majority of the studying that I did was in the latter half of those 2 weeks, so the last week. So I really got into my own head about this class prior to starting. I had seen all the Reddit threads saying that the PA and OA didn't align very well, that it was one of the harder classes that people have taken. And I was really letting that get to me, also because my term is basically ending in a few days. I didn't think that a week or 2 weeks would be enough to get through everything, which, depending on the kind of person you are, it might not be enough to get you through it, because this class does use like pretty basic algebra, but algebra nonetheless. If you haven't taken a math class in a while, it can be kind of difficult to get into that, get back into it a little bit more to start to use it and then apply it to accounting as well. Especially because this class is very like definition heavy. There's just a lot that goes into it. Luckily, since this was my last class, last class of the term, I have really already got into the habit of kind of approaching classes aggressively, and I had the expertise of just knowing that it's going to take a lot to pass the class. So, with that being said, I was pretty sure that I was going to push into my next term, because I was like, I already have completed a bunch of classes. Maybe I'll just wait for this one. But I knew that if I pushed into the next term, it was just going to hold me back a little bit more. And so I changed my mindset. As corny or as cheesy as that sounds, I just told myself that I could do it, that it's a manageable class, and that the Reddit threads just didn't let them get to me. After a little while, I was just like, it is what it is. Let's just try and knock out this class and just finish it. So that's how I approached it, put my head down, and really just grinded it out the last week, and felt like I got to a comfortable enough place to where when I took the objective assessment, I felt more confident than I really have with any other class, which is saying a lot because some of the other classes that I've taken were pretty easy, but I just, like I said, I grinded it out and I felt really, really confident in the OA. So, my approach, and the approach that I think works best if you're taking this class, is going through all of the provided course material, and I watched every video at 1.75 speed. So not quite two times speed, just because, I don't know, for me, I felt like I was pausing a lot more at 2 times speed, and I don't know it's not much of a difference, but the 1.75 speed was just enough for me to understand, comprehend, and also not pause every 10 seconds or 20 seconds. So I took extensive notes on almost everything in those embedded videos. And sorry, I should say, the videos I'm mentioning here are the embedded videos, not necessarily the cohorts and key cohort concepts. even though I did watch those, but these videos are the embedded videos in the course material. Those are extremely useful. Like I said, I took a lot of notes, and I also watched all the recorded cohorts. I personally don't think that the recorded cohorts are enough to get a good idea of what's going to be on the test. So I saw a lot of people just that in the past have recommended, just watch recorded cohorts and you'll be fine. But I passed it away, and I didn't feel like if I'd only watched recorded cohorts, I would have had a good grasp on what the test was going to test me on. I also watched the Key Concept Cohorts. Those are about 30 minutes each, and I took the test at the end, and I think these are a better preparation tool. I don't think you can get everything you need from the Key Concept Cohorts, but the majority of what you need will be in here. But these, with the embedded videos, I think you would do great. You could honestly skip the recorded cohorts that aren't the Key Concept ones and just watch the embedded videos and the Key Concepts, and you'll be good. Okay, so I also watched the Excel specific videos. So Excel portion, personally, I didn't find difficult. There's really only 2 Excel formulas that you have to remember, and I'll go over those a little bit later. But the Excel portion, personally, I think should just be easy points. I think everyone should be able to get 100% on it. It's not too difficult. Once you know the equations, you're literally copying, pasting. So watch those videos and then watch them right before your test. You'll be fine. Definitely if you have taken D100, which is Intro to Spreadsheets, I think that test was way more difficult than the Excel portion on this test. With that being said, if you haven't taken D100 before, you might want to take it prior to taking this class. And most people take D100 before they take D196. So I don't think it should be too difficult, but I have seen some people who have taken D196 prior to D100 and have expressed that they felt it would have been more beneficial to take an Intro to Spreadsheets prior to Financial and Managerial Accounting. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the important concepts to understand. So really, the base of everything is financial and managerial accounting. So you're going to want to understand the difference between financial and managerial accounting. Financial accounting is the gathering, reporting, and analysis of information primarily for the benefit of external users, like investors and creditors. Managerial accounting is the gathering and analysis of information for the purposes of internal decision-making. So just remember, financial accounting, external users. Managerial accounting, internal users for decision-making. If you can remember that financial accounting is for external users and managerial accounting is for internal users, you will definitely be able to get around questions that have very specific keywords. Like, obviously, you're going to want to read every question carefully, but a lot of them are asking, like specifically, not asking, but they'll reference like an external user, and you'll be able to immediately know, external is financial accounting. So what is all encompassing of financial accounting? And then you'll be able to answer the question from there. And I'm talking about like questions from the quizzes and inside of the course material, and that may or may not also relate to the test material. Some other things you're going to want to understand are assets, liabilities, equity, and ALE. So let's go over assets first. Assets are resources that are owned by a business, and these can include cash, accounts receivable, notes receivable, prepaid expenses. So on a balance sheet, any of these that are mentioned, you will put those in the asset area. Liabilities, those are claims or obligations of the business against assets of the business. So these would include accounts payable and notes payable. So difference between assets and liabilities. Typically when you see something that's like cash, it's always going to be an asset. If you see something that references like receivable, like accounts receivable and notes receivable, you'll know that's money you should be expecting and it will count as an asset. Liabilities, those are like accounts payable, notes payable. So if you owe a different company for something that you've purchased, you're going to know that that's a liability. And yeah. Equity is ownership interest in a company. So that can be something like retained earnings. So you'll hear a lot about owner's equity, and that's going to be how you calculate for assets. So just know equity is ownership interest in a company. So retained earnings is an example of that. Okay. Horizontal analysis. So I underlined horizontal analysis and vertical analysis because this is what you need to know for the Excel portion of this class. So horizontal analysis is to get that when you are in the Excel portion, you just have to use the current year minus the previous year divided by the previous year. But it's important that you put parentheses around the top of this equation because you're going to want to make sure that PEMDAS is used, which is, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. This needs to be done first before you divide by the previous year. If you don't, it's going to mess up your equation and you're going to get a weird percentage or you're just going to get no answer. And just a reminder, this should give you a percentage change from the previous year to the current year. So I don't have any Excel spreadsheets to show you an example on this, but you'll find that in the course material. However, you should be getting a percentage, not a whole number. So remember that. All right, and vertical analysis. So vertical analysis is just going vertically on a spreadsheet. And what you're going to need to know for this is the numerator is going to, the top number that is being divided by net sales is going to change. But as an example, if you're trying to get the percentage of net sales divided by net sales, you should get 100%. So if net sales was $100,000, you're going to be dividing that by $100,000 to equal 100%. And something to know about this is that the bottom is going to use an absolute cell reference. So that's the dollar sign, which is going to always reference the net sales. So the denominator in this situation should always stay as net sales because you're going to get a percentage of what each item makes up of the net sales. So that might have sounded like a bunch of word vomit, but essentially, here's an example. If net sales is $123,456 and cost of goods sold is $6,725, you will divide the cost of goods sold by net sales to get 5%, which essentially is just saying that cost of goods sold makes up 5% of the net sales. And it'll be a lot easier when you see it on a spreadsheet. Like I said, I don't have a spreadsheet to show you, so I can't really show you a good example, but that's what you need to understand. Okay, so CVP analysis. This is very important. CVP stands for cost, volume, profit analysis. And the equation for that is sales revenue minus variable costs minus fixed costs equal profit. So to break it down a little bit more, sales revenue times the amount of units that you have subtracted by variable costs times the amount of units that you have minus the fixed costs equal profit. And in most questions, you're going to be given either all of these or some of these, and then you will have to use basic algebra to solve either profit or maybe even units or maybe even a specific cost. So either fixed costs or variable costs or even sales revenue. Memorize this. This is going to be extremely important. If you can memorize this, I think you'll do very well on the pre-assessment and the objective assessment. And like I said, you're going to be using basic algebra to solve for any figure that is not given to you. So, like I said, if you are given sales revenue, variable costs, and profit, you can, subtract these two and then isolate fixed costs on one side of the equation to give you what fixed costs will equal. Not very difficult, but if you haven't taken a math class in a while, it might be a little bit more difficult to remember how to do something like that. But remember CVP analysis, it's going to be very important. And the contribution margin is also going to be very important. This is just sales revenue minus variable costs will give you the contribution margin. And so here's an example. If sales revenue is $10,000 and variable costs are $5,000, and you are asked for the contribution margin, you will just subtract those to get the contribution margin of $5,000. And sometimes it will ask for the contribution margin per unit. And in that case, you will just take the unit costs and do the same subtraction to get the contribution margin per unit. Pretty basic. You probably won't have a very difficult time with that. Just remember that the CVP analysis and contribution margin are very important. Break even. So break even just is when total revenues equals total costs, and that's when there is $0 in profit. Okay, so now costing. Costing, I believe, is unit 7, and this is a big chunk of the test. As you will see, they give you a percentage layout of how much each unit is worth, and I believe costing is about 25%, so you should understand costing. There are 3 types of costing. The first one is, in no particular order. The first one is job order costing, and that is when products are made based on customer orders and when the product produced is considered a separate job. Production costs are tracked by each job, and you will use job order costing when products are unique, like building houses, for example, is when you would use job order costing because each house is likely going to be different. So, yeah. The next one is process costing, and this is to be used when large volumes of the same product or service are being produced. So I think the example that I heard was like ketchup or hot dogs is when you're going to be using this because you are producing large volumes of the same product. Every hot dog that is being created and produced is essentially the same, and it just costs too much to try and track each individual hot dog. So hot dogs, bottles of ketchup, mustard, just when there are large volumes of the same product or service. Activity-based costing. So you will also see this referenced as like ABC. So if you see ABC, that's just activity-based costing. And this is assigning cost based on overhead, and it makes for more accurate product costing. So those are the 3 costing methods. Be very familiar with those. You'll probably have a good amount of questions on those. So you'll be able to tell when to use each one. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to cover, and this is just a very broad overview of things that I found important, but make sure to go through all the material. But yeah, back to this. So the Financial Accounting and Standards Board is otherwise known as FASB. This is not a government agency, it has no legal authority, and it establishes the generally accepted accounting principles, otherwise known as GAAP. If you see FASB, just remember it's not a government agency. Don't get tricked. Not a government agency. GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, is also not a government agency. They follow the generally accepted accounting principles, And what this board does is try to improve procedures for governmental accounting. There's not really much to say on those two. Just know the difference between them and just remember they are not government agencies. So, great, on to the next one. The American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the AICPA, is a professional association of CPAs. That's all I really need to know about that. The next section here is the Internal Revenue Service. I'm sure you're familiar with them, the IRS. This is a government agency and it regulates and collects income taxes. So if you're asked out of these to figure out which one is a government agency, remember it's the IRS. Not FASB, not GASB, and not the AICPA. And the last organization to know is the International Accounting Standards Board. This one's not as important, but it's essentially just FASB for the entire world, except for the United States. And yeah, that's everything I have. Hopefully this video was helpful in just breaking down concepts that might have been a little bit more difficult. Sorry if I confused anyone anymore, but I really just wanted to make this to help make the class a little bit easier for anyone who's a little worried or concerned. Yeah, you guys will do great. This concludes the first term for me at Western Governors University. I really liked it. This class was very stressful, but I think you just got to break it down into easily manageable pieces, and you'll get through it just fine. If I could recommend to you, if you're still trying to figure out what classes to take first, maybe take this one towards the beginning of a term rather than the end of your term, because at the end it just gets way more stressful. Like myself, I was just really psyching myself out. If you can take it at the beginning of the term, it might take a little bit longer to get through it, and you might feel like you're going at a slower pace, but I feel like it's way easier to get this done at the beginning rather than at the end and stressing more about it. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful, and good luck with this class.